So
Right.
I don't
Okay.
get I don't get that.
All right, we're on.
Go. Wait, so we're live?
All right. Welcome to the Y Ball Starters NBA trade deadline special. My name is Kendall Crane. I am appearing as Drew Lawson today because we
I'm John
are,
LaValle.
yeah, that's John, also known as Jonathan's iPad today. And yeah, ignore the Drew part. He's the one in charge of our account over here, so that is a lie. I am Kendall, but we're gonna be talking some NBA trade deadline news, looking over some of the rumors that are circulating around right now. For those of you who might not be familiar with our show, we focus primarily on Pacific Northwest teams, specifically for NBA, the Portland Trailblazers. But for this special, we'll look at what other teams are doing around the league, different prospects possibly coming to Portland, different players that we should be looking at, as well as different Western Conference and Eastern Conference foes. And John has got a lot of information. John, what's kind of your takeaway so far for this NBA trade deadline? There hasn't been a lot of actual news, just a lot of rumors so far.
Yeah, it appears so. Three trades have been made since the start of the season, so very little. Hearing from what I know, it's still expected to be a pretty busy one. I mean, Woj and Zach Lowe had a show on ESPN today, and they were talking about different rumors. And there's definitely a lot of rumors flying out, just no trades have been made, which is kind of interesting. It's been a while since we've seen a trade deadline where there aren't like a couple like sizable moves of like a week or so before the deadline. Portland usually being one of those teams, they like to move like a little bit before the deadline. So it's kind of interesting that none have been made, but you got to think there's still going to be a lot to be had. I mean, there are a lot of teams that are in like the borderline contention that really need another player, like Portland. So I mean, I still think
Oh
it's going to
yeah.
be pretty active tomorrow.
I think it's for sure going to be really active. There's so many teams, just with the whole Corona situation, just the fact
Yeah,
too that everybody got such a late start, anyways, with kind of the trades going on. That I think that there's going to be a lot of movement that ends up happening by tomorrow. I just think that it has, like you were saying, I think it's just interesting that there just hasn't been a lot of actual trades yet. It's just been a lot of rumors so far. But what are some of the rumors that you're hearing? We'll talk specifically Portland for right now. Who are you seeing Portland kind of looking at going after? I know that obviously all of us Blazer fans really want an extra point guard behind Damon CJ. I think that we could also use a big. What have you kind of been hearing?
yeah. Just keeping my pulse out there on Bleacher Report, different Blazer blogs and stuff. I mean, the name I've seen most is Aaron Gordon. The problem with him is, excuse me, the Magic's asking price has been a young starter and a first round pick for him, and we have Gary Trent who kind of fills the mold of that, but we do not have picks, and we wouldn't offer a pick. So that's a name that's been thrown around a lot. Today, Woj and Zach Lowe talked about Victor Oladipo and Norman Powell, which is kind of odd to me because they're both a little small to play the three. Both have long wingspans though, and both are tremendous perimeter defenders, which we desperately need help in. I agree. I think we need to back. I would like to see a backup point guard. I'd love to see us go after someone like George Hill that has championship level experience. If we were somehow able to pry Patrick Beverly away, I kind of hate playing him, but I feel like he would help our team with the tenacity. Um, but yeah, I don't know. There's been a lot of players in contention, but Portland again is like one of those teams that you don't really hear much about what is actually going on. So I feel like when we make a move tomorrow, it's going to be someone you haven't heard about.
That's the thing, is that ever since I've been watching Blazer basketball, which has been a while now, Neil always keep things so under wrap.
Yeah,
They're a very secretive organization compared to a lot of other organizations. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it's just so hard to gauge where they're at and kind of the moves that the Neil and the rest of the staff is looking at making for the team.
Yeah, they always make those moves that like you see the name and you're like, oh yeah, that guy is pretty good. They never
Right.
it's never like the dude that's really talked about. So it's gonna be interesting. I think like just looking at the team, they have a ton of guys that can play the three, but they really don't have any like natural power forwards on the roster. I mean, they play Robert Covington. He's only 6 power forward. And they play Melo again, who his whole career's been a small forward as a power forward. So I'd like to see them get some wing size. A couple of guys that I particularly like that I think the asking price would be reasonable. I like Larry Nance from Cleveland. He can kind of stretch the floor. He's a good rebounder. He's a pretty good defender as well, and he's like 6'9" or so, pretty athletic. He's on a pretty manageable contract too. I think it's only 11 mil a year. And another guy who I think has a ton, who I think would fit in perfectly. The only problem is his contract is absurdly high. It's Al Horford from the Thunder. I think it makes no sense when he's on the Thunder, and I think he would help a ton. But his contract is so awful that I don't even know if that's like actually mathematically possible. What about you? Are there any names that you have?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't think Al Horford is very realistic, to be quite honest. Like you said, his contract is just an albatross. It's so bad. I mean,
absurdly bad.
It's terrible. I mean, you look at him, you look at Gordon Hayward and some of these other players, and especially with the cap situation and coming up in years. I mean, it's not, oh, here's something interesting I'm seeing. Portland Trail Blazers interested in JaVale McGee. Now, that would be an interesting name to get on the team. Somebody really lengthy, somebody who has a lot of veteran experience. Yeah, get some shot blocking in there. Very athletic, can run the floor really well. I don't know what would that mean for somebody like Kanter, because I think that Enes Kanter has definitely, I know that he struggles on defense, but he's definitely played himself into his minutes. So how are we getting somebody like JaVale McGee?
So, yeah.
Like I don't know if JaVale McGee would take Kanter's minutes, or how that would. I don't know if that would work or not.
I know. I think since Portland is based so much on respect, it's hard for me to believe that we're going to trade for a center, just because we have Nurkic coming back, and the only other minutes would I feel like go to Kanter just because he's earned them. I really think they're really going to focus on a wing and hopefully a backup point guard, though I wouldn't hold your breath. I mean, just since CJ's come back, they've either played Dame or CJ on the floor at all times. I don't think that's going to go away. I really think their focus is on the wing position at the time. But I mean, Neil is so sick who did that. Who knows? I mean, I definitely could be wrong.
Yeah, I would kind of think that we're probably not going to go after a center as well. I feel like that's more just talk. And I think that definitely the wing position specifically, we need another. Covington's been playing a lot better offensively for us, which is awesome considering the fact that he puts out probably the most energy on defense out of any player on our team. So to see him becoming more of that 3-and-D presence over the last, probably 10 or 12 games has been encouraging to see. But I definitely think that if we could get Aaron Gordon, I'd be willing to give up Gary Trent. I'd be willing to give up Nazir. 100%. Now, the one thing I can't remember is how much more time does Gordon have on his deal?
I believe it's another year after this season. I believe. I'm not entirely sure. Another name I just happened to see that I think could help the team a lot is DeMar DeRozan.
I wonder what the Spurs asking price though would be for him. I
don't know. I know with Aldridge deciding to leave, whether it be trade or buyout, I've heard likely either gone at the deadline or at the offseason. And I think that could provide a third bona fide scorer. I mean, even though it probably could be, if you have him, CJ, and Melo on the floor at the same time, could be absolute nightmare. Like Like that could also be incredibly good. I mean, that's four guys that can create their own shot.
Yeah, we already make enough fun of the Blazers for playing the most iso ball basketball out of anybody in the league, and that's saying something considering that the Brooklyn Nets also exist. So
True.
adding DeMar DeRozan to that equation, I don't think we'd ever see it pass. It'd be a rebound, and it would be that dude takes the ball up the floor, and they're taking a shot. That'd be the way it is.
But here's the thing, though, is I have heard DeMar DeRozan has changed as a player. He's averaging like 7 assists this year, like a game. So he's become more of a facilitator. So I
Really,
mean,
he's
I don't know
averaging
if
that
that's
high.
enough. Yeah, he's having they play him as a power forward for some reason. And
Yeah,
which
I saw that.
unfortunately means that we probably would too. Um, but I mean, he's a good basketball player. I mean, he would definitely be a significant upgrade as a basketball player. I just don't know fit wise. It's hard to tell though, because there aren't a ton of wings on the market that really could help Portland. So it's interesting to see whether they're going to be aggressive or not.
Yeah, you're right. He is. He's averaging 3.7 or sorry, 7.3 assists per game this year. He's
Whew,
also averaging, yeah, he's at 31% for 3-point range this year, which is good for DeMar. But I
not
mean, that's not where
terrible.
his bread and butter is. He's
No,
also
he's not 3 points
averaging
here.
he's actually averaging higher than his career average points per game at 20.5 this year. So
Oh, he's having a pretty good
statistically,
year.
yeah, that's actually encouraging to see that he's thriving in that role at power forward. He's still getting his points, but also like you said, he's distributing, and I think a lot of that, obviously, we could say Popovich has probably helped mold him into kind of that next
100%.
level type player.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think that DeMar would be. I think it would be interesting. I don't know what we'd have
Yeah.
to realistically give up because, like you said, he is a free agent in at the end of the season. So those are always really tricky when you have a valuable player and you're looking at trading for him. Kind of what assets you have to give up.
Yeah. My guess would be something like Trent and Little in a second. Something like that. I think his asking price is probably pretty low because I imagine the Spurs are trying to get younger, especially with Aldridge on his way out. So my guess is the asking price to be low, but I'm not. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not really in tune with the Spurs very much. He's just a name that I think more than any. I think he's probably the most skilled player that we could get. Um, just
Yeah.
thinking overall basketball wise, I don't know if his fit is good, but I mean, he's probably the closest to a third star that we could get.
I still think Aaron Gordon, well, DeMar DeRozan by name and by caliber is probably a little bit closer to the star, but I
Yeah,
think Aaron Gordon would fit in better to the team
I
relative
tend to agree.
to DeMar DeRozan. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I
Uh
don't think we're going to
I
get him is the problem. I think he's going to somewhere
Aaron
like
Gordon.
Toronto. Yeah, I don't know if we have enough. I'm not sure. Um,
I don't see him going to Toronto. That doesn't really seem to be a need of theirs.
yeah, I just don't
They
know.
already have enough guys who play defense and can't shoot. I mean, I know Gordon can shoot, but
True, true. Toronto's kind of an interesting case too, because I mean we have Powell, who all of a sudden seems like he's certainly gone from them, which is kind of surprising. I didn't know he was definitely gone, and then all of a sudden Lowry seems like he's definitely gone too,
yeah, when
which
did
is
this come
really
about,
odd.
Lowry?
I don't know. Like I thought I saw that he didn't want to get traded, and then all of a sudden it sounds like it's confirmed that he's either going to be in Miami or Philadelphia tomorrow, which is so confusing. It's his 36th or 7th birthday tomorrow. Which is kind of funny. But yeah, it sounds like he's
Kyle.
probably getting traded, which is kind of odd. And then yeah, I don't know if you saw what happened with Siakam. That team is kind of a mess right now. Like he got benched and then like yelled at Nick Nurse or something. Like it's kind of an interesting
Who was that?
situation there to see how much Pascal Siakam.
Really? Man,
Yeah, which is kind of weird.
what's going on with the Raptors? What's their record right now? I'm doing a little bit of
They're
that
I believe they're
Google
a lower
research.
playoff seed. When I saw the Pacers today made Brogdon available and Miles Turner available in trade talks. I don't know why they would make Brogdon available. He's had a good stint there.
Yeah, yeah, I did see though that a couple of the Indianapolis reporters were saying that Brogdon's probably not going to get traded because they want to try to integrate him with Karis LeVert now that he's playing. So
Yeah, and Karis LeVert's played well. He played a good game today. They're a fun. I think they're a
LeVert's
really
good.
underrated team. I guess they're the 9 seed, so they've been struggling, but I mean, they got some players on that team.
Yeah, the Pacers have always been weird to me because ever since going back to what, probably 2016, I mean, since Paul George left them and they got that Domantas Sabonis, Victor Oladipo trade,
Yeah,
they've had the talent, but it doesn't feel like that they quite have that top tier guy on their team,
yes,
like kind of that alpha
100%.
star that can go just get it. And I think that's why you always see them kind of in that 5 to 6 seed area. And I know they're a little
Yeah,
lower this year, but some of that's because they haven't had Oladipo and then LeVert, obviously, with his the little tumor that was found.
yeah. I have a soft spot for them because they kind of remind me of the LaMarcus Aldridge Blazers, where it's like a bunch of pretty good players, and they're pretty good, and they're just like solid all around. Um, trying to see what
Yeah,
other
they
news.
are. They are solid all around, but I don't know. I'd be curious to see what Brogdon would get back in return though for them. I think that'd be interesting. I do think Turner's a really good trade piece for them. Turner does a
He is.
lot. And I think that he could get them back some pretty decent I think he could get them back a decent return.
We have a Woj bomb. A trade has
Oh,
been
we
made.
do. Dun dun dun
Uh,
dun.
it's a huge trade too. The Pistons are trading Corey Joseph and 2 second-round picks for DeLon Wright.
Oh,
Or
that
sorry,
is
the
a
Sacramento Kings are trading for DeLon Wright. Yes.
Oh,
So
that is a monster trade. One that could
yeah,
honestly change the landscape of the
huge,
NBA as we know it.
huge trade. Wow.
Delon
Lonzo Ball.
Wright.
You think he gets traded? Where do you think he goes or stays?
The New Orleans Pelicans have a lot to figure out. I don't
I
know.
agree.
I don't.
That team makes no sense to me. I mean, you got Zion and Steven Adams together, and that makes no sense. And then you have Lonzo and Eric Bledsoe in the backcourt, and that makes no sense.
Yeah, they just haven't worked. I think that Ingram and Zion, I'm not convinced that they're honestly gonna work out together. Just the way
Yeah, I don't
they both
know.
have such different styles of play. And I don't know. I think that there's better players that you could get around. I'm just surprised that they haven't worked out as well. I know that youth is a big deal, but they
Yeah,
still have some veterans on that team. I'm
it,
seeing
it
that the
makes me
Denver
almost feel
Nuggets
like they're
have shown some
scapegoating
interest in Lonzo
Lonzo.
Ball.
Weird. They'd probably play him at the 2 then. I guess that would make sense. The
Yeah.
defender next to Jamal Murray. I mean, he's a player where I think ironically he fits with Zion better than Ingram does. I don't see why they would trade him, but it seems like they want to trade him. I've seen the Bulls are interested too. The
That's my
Bulls
thought
are
too.
another team that make no sense to me.
Well,
I
that's the
know
thing
that
is
the
that
Clippers pipe dream.
who is that for the Clippers? Sorry.
I know Lonzo Ball is the Clippers pipe dream, but there's no way they have enough talent. They have enough like to give up to get him. But I think they're going to probably trade for a point
Oh,
guard as
jeez,
well.
Alonzo on there.
I know that would be insane.
Man, that would be
would hate that.
tough. That would be tough. One word. That would not be fun.
Mm-hmm. Not great.
I
Not
think
great.
that I think that Lonzo would definitely put the Clippers into the same category as the Lakers, just with
100%.
his ability to move the ball around.
I completely
Uh,
agree.
speaking of the Lakers, you've seen any interesting trade proposals going on there in Lakersville?
Lakers are apparently interested in Kyle Lowry, which makes sense. I mean, he makes complete sense for them at the point. Then they could bring Schroeder off the bench, which is more natural for him, anyways. Which would be awful. I would hate if that happened. But they also I've seen they've shown interest in Miles Turner, a guy you've talked about, which also makes sense. Rim protecting. I mean, they missed McGee and Dwight Howard. They don't have the same rim protection that they had the year ago. I think their roster is overall better than last year, but they miss that rim protection. Gasol is very old now, and and Trez is just not he's more of an Enes Kanter type player. He's not a rim protector at all. He's only like 6'7", 6'8".
No. Oh yeah, no, he's got that Kenneth Faried syndrome going on, just in look
100%.
and in style of play. He I think that Montrezl has kind of more or less been figured out by the league. Still a valuable piece. He can get his
Still a
own,
good
but
player.
he's not.
Yeah,
He's still a good player, but he's not the impact that he was necessarily a season or two ago.
yeah, he's an energy player.
I do think that I do agree with you. I think the Lakers are better this year, as in terms of they just have a better team around them. But I actually think they might be a little bit more beatable this year since they don't
Mm,
have that size underneath. And
mm,
it's such a guard heavy league. There are guards that can match somebody like a Dennis Schroeder, for instance. And somebody
yeah,
like a Kyle Lowry would fit the mold for the Lakers perfectly, considering the fact that
yeah.
he's such a bulldog, and that's exactly how the
Oh my
Lakers
gosh,
play. They're
100%.
so good defensively, so good.
Well, and I mean, they've fallen off now, but I mean, they were first in the NBA in defense when they had Bron and AD this year. So I mean, adding someone like Kyle Lowry at the point of your attack just makes it even harder to score. I mean, that's three dudes that are going to be on the court 35 minutes a game in the playoffs that can absolutely destroy your offense. So like, that would be scary if they got him.
That would, yeah, no kidding. That would be scary. How about in the East? You seeing anything out in the East that looks interesting for?
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I think Kyle Lowry is going to go to Philadelphia tomorrow. I know he's from Philly. I think Toronto wants to give him a shot at another title. I think that's why they're going to trade him. Um, and I mean, if I'm Philly, I'm going all in with him. I think he fits really well there. I mean, they can even run him off ball and be a shooter around Ben Simmons. Pick and roll with Joel Embiid. I mean, I think he fits perfectly there, and I think they're going to find a way to get it done. I think it's going to be
That's
something
a
like
really good fit.
Thibault and Maxi, or like Thibault and like what's the other guy? Shake Milton. Cut some of those young guards or something. Maybe Tony Bradley or something. I think they're going to find a way to get it done. I think Miami's going to make a move also. I think honestly, Miami's going to trade Victor Oladipo.
That'd be a good move
Or
for them.
someone. I think Miami's going to make a move tomorrow too, though, because they're definitely under the top tier of the East, but they're not far under. I mean, outside of Brooklyn, everyone's under Brooklyn, but Miami's is like one like very solid player, like one Kyle Lowry away from being right there with Philly and Milwaukee. Um, the same with Boston. I think Boston's going to make a big move. I think they're going to go after a big guy. I don't know who, but I think Boston, because Boston's another team is right there. They're just under that tier also, and they can get there. And it'll be interesting to see who doesn't get traded, who gets bought out. Because I think the buyout market, I think that's where the Lakers are really going to go, is looking at someone like Drummond in the buyout market. So we're going to see. I think there'll be quite a few veterans that get bought out that unfortunately sign with the top tier teams that make the NBA stacked, but it happens every year. So I
It
mean, we'll see
always
how impactful
happens
those
every
guys.
single year.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was seeing Andre Drummond has been getting a lot of interest from the Knicks, which that would be interesting on the buyout because the Knicks
yeah,
have already, I would say, overperformed this year, and Andre Drummond would be definitely an impact piece for them going forward, and somebody that I think could put them over the top and into the playoffs, which isn't necessarily saying a lot for the bottom of the East, but you gotta take what you get. And I think just kind of going off more some of the Eastern Conference teams, Aaron Gordon going to the Boston Celtics again, like kind of we mentioned. I just don't see the fit for that personally. that's not where Boston needs more help. Boston needs a big man. They should be the team that's looking for somebody like in the buyout market, like an Andre Drummond or a JaVale McGee, something along those lines. That's where Boston more needs. That's where Boston is going to get over the top and into the Eastern Conference Finals because, quite frankly, they've underachieved this year, and that's been surprising. I really thought that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were really making the next step up. They still got Kemba Walker. I know Kemba hasn't quite had the season just because of injuries, and just hasn't been able to quite get in the groove this year necessarily. They've had Peyton Pritchard this year too, who's been a good rookie for them. But I think that Boston really needs. It's kind of funny. I thought Hassan Whiteside was actually an interesting fit for the Celtics
Ooh,
earlier this year.
that would make sense.
It would. I just don't. Man, after watching him on the Blazers last year, I just don't know how good Whiteside really is.
Yeah. Boston is a team that makes no sense to me. I don't see how they're bad. I think realistically it's because they have two small centers and so they're not able to stop people inside. But even then, they have enough talent to still win. So I don't really get it. But I mean, I would love to see trade for Nikola Vucevic from the Magic. I think he would help them a ton. I think he would open up things a
Nikola
lot.
Vucevic would be it.
And they
I
have the
saw
picks to
reports
get
that he's
him.
probably staying with Orlando.
That's too bad.
Who would
He could help a lot of teams.
that's you'd have to give up Marcus Smart
But would you though? Because I don't know if I would give up
for
Smart.
Vucevic.
It's hard to give up Smart though. I mean, he's such a bulldog and such a leader defensively. I mean, he's
I
kind
just
of their
don't know
Draymond
what
Green.
I just don't know what do you give up though? Because Vucevic has been playing out of his mind this year. Like
I know that's the
Vucevic, in my
thing.
opinion, he Vucevic is worth more than Gordon is, and I don't even think it's.
Yes, 100%, one
He's
hundred
definitely
percent.
a step above Aaron Gordon. I don't know if I'd say light years ahead, but what would get him? What type of package would get Vucevic away from Orlando?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm assuming the Celtics still have picks. I don't know if they do. Because if they still had picks, I mean, I would throw whatever picks at him because that makes them a championship contender. Um, but they
Yeah,
don't have very many. I mean, you'd assume Peyton Pritchard because he's a pretty good young player, maybe Grant Williams, but those aren't needle moving players. Those are role players. So I'm
no,
not sure. They would maybe, I mean, the name I think you look to first is Kemba Walker, as assuming they want him. Because he's the best player that Danny Ainge would realistically would realistically give up, but I don't know if that does it for them. So I don't know if he's a guy that really makes a ton of sense
right.
for them.
And I don't know if you heard me say while you were kind of frozen out there for a second, is that Kimball Walker just he hasn't quite been the same player this year for them.
No, he hasn't.
He's taken a step back this year, and I mean I don't know though if you roll with Peyton Pritchard. I think that Kimba is definitely more talented and more value than Peyton, and I just don't know if Peyton's quite ready yet. As good as he is, and I do think that he could be a starter in the future, to be quite honest. I think he's that talented. But at this
Me too.
point, he's not Kimball Walker, even with Walker taking a
No.
step back.
Yeah, and that's where I think they could get a third team involved, see if they could help strip something to Orlando and they give something to them. Because that would, I would say, be Boston's only hope of getting Vucevic. Because I agree with you. I don't think they are going to give up Smart because I don't think they want to. But if they find a third team to take Kemba Walker, then they can help give assets to Orlando. So maybe you see something like that. But yeah, I agree. Just a one-on-one trade with Orlando, they don't have enough.
Okay, now here's an interesting proposal that I just kind of thought in my own head. I know it
Okay,
probably wouldn't
okay.
happen. What about a Victor Oladipo type trade for the Celtics? And then you grab one of their
Interesting.
big men
So Victor Oladipo goes where? To the Celtics?
to Boston. Yeah.
To Boston? Dang, who's Boston? Who would you have Boston give up then?
Well, I guess you could trade Kim, but I don't know though. Maybe that.
I know it's so it's so hard, and Yeah.
Inside my head, I was kind of thinking Oladipo's still on the Pacers, so I'm stuck in earlier this year.
I know.
Because I was gonna say
And
if you paired him with Miles Turner, that would be good, but of course he's not on the Pacers; he's on the Rockets, so
yeah.
that
And the
probably
Rockets
wouldn't
have
be as.
no bigs unless they still have Boogie Cousins. Is Boogie Cousins still on Houston technically? Because he could be interesting. I don't know if
Yeah,
he's good enough to move the needle for Boston, but maybe. I really don't know.
I thought that Cousins had been put
I
onto
don't know if he fully
Brooklyn.
got bought out because I feel like he would have signed with someone.
He is. He got bought out.
He did. Okay. Weird he hasn't signed anywhere.
Somebody
Um,
made the perfect plan for the Portland Trailblazers, an ultimate revenge squad with LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMarcus Cousins.
oh my gosh. Would they
How
play
does
Aldridge before? How on earth did they do that?
how does this atrocity of a defensive starting lineup sound? Dame,
Okay.
CJ, Mello, Aldridge, and Cousins.
Oh, that is tough.
On the
Why?
bright side,
What?
our
So
offensive
Rocco
rating
would
would
be part of
be
that trade then.
fantastic.
100%.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, he would be,
another.
which would be a terrible idea, but
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I don't think Aldridge is coming back. I'm not opposed to it, but I just don't see it happening, especially not this year.
no.
Another name I've seen being shopped around actively, which is kind of interesting, is Kelly Oubre from the Warriors. Not necessarily for Portland. I don't know if he would help Portland a lot, but that's another like he's a pretty good player. I'm not entirely sure why they're shopping him, but another name that could be out there.
Yeah, I don't know if Kelly Oubre is really going to be the needle mover for for the Blazers that we need. I think that kind of like what we were saying. I think that Aaron Gordon is the type of player that we I would be willing to swing big for Gordon. Honestly, that's the type of guy that I'd be willing to give up a Nazir Little or a Gary Trent Jr. For, just because I think that he's that valuable to the team. I think
100%.
Gordon puts us. I think Aaron Gordon, if we could keep Covington, and obviously Adam Jones isn't going anywhere being on an expiring contract, but we keep those type of players
100%.
along with Gordon. I really, and Nurkic comes back healthy. That's a team that could compete for a title.
That's a really good team. Yeah, I think we need a four because I mean, I love Covington and he can play good defense against bigger dudes, but we need him to be a wing defender first. We need him to not be a post defender. We need we need someone else in there also. And Aaron Gordon is a good
For
defender and he's bigger. He's at least 6'9". I'm not entirely sure, but I know he is a pretty big dude. And so he could really help in there. Um,
yeah, I
I
think
don't know
Aaron
how
Gordon
big Aaron
is
Gordon is. I
around
know he's
that.
bigger than Covington, though. He's a pretty big boy.
Yeah, he's 6'9".
6'9".
He's only
Yeah.
25 too. So
He's only 25.
yeah.
Wow. He's way younger than I thought. Holy cow. It feels like he's been in the league forever.
Well,
That is
he played
crazy.
his freshman year at Arizona. He plays freshman year at Arizona, and then he went to the NBA draft. So those one and
So he's
done
been in the
guys,
league
yeah,
6 years.
they make it feel like that's
Make
been the
it,
league for a while when really
yeah.
they're still
Holy
young.
cow.
They just came in when they're 19.
That is crazy. Yeah, and I think this is really the year Portland should make a trade. I mean, you have Gary Trent, who's a good player and a very attractive prospect. And he's not someone that you can resign in the offseason. He's going to cost way too much money. So this is the season to move someone like Gary. Unfortunately, as much as I like him as a player and I'd love him to stay, if we're rolling with Damon CJ and it sure seems like we are, I mean, there's no space for Gary Trent. We need wings, not guards.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. I agree. So, do you have any bold predictions then, kind of wrapping up here going into tomorrow that you see? Give me your top bold prediction.
Trades. There's going to be a lot. I think there's going to be a lot, and I would say there's going to be some names moved that we did not see coming. Whether that be on Portland or not on Portland, I think there's going to be some relatively big trades. I think every team is going to be pretty active except for Utah. Utah has no needs for trades, and so I expect them to not make any. But I think every other team might make a trade. I think we're going to see a pretty crazy deadline. I think we're going to see not a lot still up until the exact deadline. I think it's going to be like, I think it was like 6 years ago now or something like that, where it was almost every trade was right within 30 minutes of the deadline. And I think it's going to be something like that. It's going to be an insanity rush at the very end. But yeah, as far as players going where, I really don't know. I'm not sure at all. What about you? Do you have any predictions?
I think not necessarily player wise, just because it's too unpredictable and players never end up going where analysts say that they're going to go, or where the rumor mill has them going. That's very rare. So I don't have a good idea. It's just been a lot of very kind of vanilla rumors so far. I do agree with you. I think that there's going to be a lot of trades. I do think Portland will make a trade. Just from what I was hearing from Woj, we've been very active in the trade pool, which is a good sign. So who that player ends up being, what position, I don't know. I hope that it's either a backup point guard, or B, a wing, and more so I'm hoping it's a wing, and we just kind of hope for good health with Damon CJ. But yeah, outside of that, I don't really have any specific players necessarily, but I do think we will see moves.
I agree. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to the Y Ball Starters. This has been our NBA trade deadline special. The NBA trade deadline is tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. So definitely stay tuned. If there's any moves specifically with the Portland Trailblazers, we'll post it up on our Instagram, our Twitter, Facebook. Give us a follow at Y Ball Starters. It's the same for Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Subscribe to us here on YouTube. We've been coming out with episodes weekly. You can find us on Spotify and SoundCloud, also at Y Ball Starters. We've just had an exciting guest in Casey Benson, former point guard of Oregon men's basketball team, join our show. And we have that episode actually here on our YouTube page. And we'll be getting that up onto Spotify. Actually, I think tonight is when we're planning on getting that up. So definitely stay tuned. We'll have more guests on. We're going to be on YouTube Live more frequently now. So stay tuned. That's all we got for tonight. And be sure to keep your eye out on future trades coming.